Okay, so this is about 3.4.1. This is about writing linear functions. So complete the sentence about the linear functions. And it says the equation for any linear function could be written in the form of y equals mx plus b. This is an equation that keeps coming up, Ms. Johnson. It's very popular. Yes, and actually it keeps being popular in 9th grade and 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and continuing on. Where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. And if you remember, y-intercept just means x equals 0, okay? So circle the values of m and b in the equation and label them appropriately. Okay, this is m and this is b. I did circle the plus there so that you knew that it was a positive one, not just a 1. So you have to take into account whether that 1 is negative or positive. Okay, so fill in the boxes to describe, give examples of what M and B represent in real life situations. So what is the rate of change? Well, that would be the M or your slope, whatever you want to call it. Slope is almost like his the word name. M is like the variable that you would use in the function. It's the rate of change. An example of that would be like miles per gallon, dollars per apple. You know, it's any kind of rate that we have. So I'm going to use miles per hour. I'm going to use dollars per apple, right? Any of those. So y value or y-intercept of the y-intercept. In real life situation, it's the starting or initial value of y. And so a jogger is 9 miles from home when he starts jogging. So again, the distance there would be 9. So that would be why it's called the initial value. Okay, so answer these questions. So this says, given the points of this, what is the equation of slope? Again, this is a big review. You know this already. M equals to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. This is something that you learned in the past before. What is the slope of a linear equation containing these points? Okay, so pause the video really quick and calculate this. You can either graph it and then count, or you can use the equation. Go ahead and do that, and then come right back. Okay, so now that you're back, I'm gonna calculate using the formula just because it's right above there. I always do m equals a minus over minus, right? And then I start plugging in my points. So I'm going to plug in 3, 5 first. So I put the 3 on the bottom and the 5 on top because that's the point, x, y, x, y. So x, y. And then I'll put my 1s in there. And some people say, Ms. Johnson, does it matter which point you put first and second? Nope, it doesn't, because the slope from one point to another should be the exact same, regardless of who you start with and count from. So if you did switch those, you would notice that our slope is exactly the same. And reminding you what slope is, it's rise over run. So that means I'm going up to right 1 for this example, right? Okay, so then it says plot the 2 points on the graph and then draw the line through the points and then circle the point where the line crosses the graph. Okay, so plot the 2 points. So 1, 1, that's right here, right? And then the point 3, 5, 3, 5 is right here, right? And then the thing that you want to pay attention to is make sure that you remember how to plot these points, because otherwise it would be wrong. I tend to want to draw good lines, so I'm going to use my little thing here to connect those 2 points. That looks pretty good, except it's a tiny tad bit off. So let me see if I can get it a little bit better. Oh, that looks better, right? Yeah. So I'm looking to make sure that they cross those places in the corners as opposed to not. So let me go like that, right? And then it says, okay, if you look for that slope, right? That slope is right here up for right 2. And there's your slope. They didn't ask you to do that, but I'm just showing you if you wanted to find the slope using your graph, that's it. And then it says circle the point where the line crosses the y-axis. That's right there. So I'm going to circle that point right there. This guy is known as my y-intercept. Okay. And it says use the slope and graph from the equation to complete that. So first find the slope of the line. The slope of the line in question 4 is, and we already found this, so it's 2. And identify the y-intercept. The intercept the line for this is 0, -1. So now they want you to put it together and make a y equals mx plus b, right? So we go y equals mx plus b, right? So here, that's our 2. So I'm just going to put a 2 right in its spot. And then b, I'm not going to bring the whole point over. I'm only going to bring this guy over because this is our actual b there. So I'm going to put a -1 there. And then I'm going to fill in the rest of that equation. So y equals 2x minus 1. That's your equation. Okay, so going backwards, you should be able to look at this equation and be like, boom, that's your y-intercept. And then using your slope, you can find another point. Okay, so we'll talk more about graphing these lines in a little bit, but that's how you check, okay? So, and then they want you to answer the questions. So do the values in the table represent a linear function? If so, explain, and then if so, write the equation. So I'm looking at these and I'm noticing this does kind of look like a linear equation because look, it's going up by the same amount while this is going up by a consistent amount, right? And then now it says to write the equation of the line. So the very first thing that I want to do is I want to find the slope. Okay, and the slope, if you remember from up here, our slope is just this equation, right? So the way I find a slope on a table is I go like this. I go, I'm going to subtract -2 minus -1. And I'm going to subtract in the same direction 2 minus 0. So I did -2 minus -1. And I did 2 minus 0. And then I'm going to divide those because that's how we find our slope. So m equals 2. -2 minus -1 over 2 minus 0. So again, you can think about me using the equation and then I plug these points in. And then, so now I'm just going to simplify and I get -1 over 2. So there's my slope. So if I was building an equation of a line, right, y equals mx plus b, that -1/2 goes right here. This -1/2 goes right here. Okay. Okay, so then I go, okay, well, y equals -1/2 x. Now I got to find b. Now, if you remember what b is your y-intercept. And y-intercept means that x is equal to 0. So let me just write that little quick note down there. Y-intercept when x equals to 0. Okay, so you want me to find x is equal to 0? It's right here, Miss Johnson. So now I want you to find the y for that 0. That -1? Yeah. So that's what goes in there. Okay, so I'm going to circle this one. Okay. And then I'm going to highlight this guy. And I'm going to put him in here. Okay. So that -1 matches that b, which is -1. So here's your equation. So then here's, we already did the work, extend it to find the y, your y-intercept. And then here, this one says, write the slope-intercept equation of the line. So now you know how to do this. I want you to take a break and figure this one out and then come back when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, So now that you're back, I'm going to find my equation. And again, I'm going to follow these same steps. I'm going to find my slope. I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to find my y-intercept. I'm going to plug it in, and then I'm done. Okay. So again, I'm going to find my slope by subtracting my y values. So I'm going to subtract, I don't know, this one here, sure. 48 minus 30. Well, that's just 18, Miss Johnson. And then I'm going to subtract 7 minus 1. Well, that's just 6. And then I'm going to divide those two because that's my slope. It's the change in y over the change in x, right? So here, m equals to 18 over 6, which is just 3. And what 3 means for every one change in x, I'm going to go up 3 in my y. So if I did 20 here, if I extended this table out, oops, my computer is going slow. Give me a second. So if I extend the table out 20 here, I would add 3 here, plus 3, that's my slope, and I would get 87. So my slope means for every 3 units I go up in my y, I go up 1 in my x. Okay. Okay. I'm going to give you a couple options on how to find your b, because right now, if you look, it doesn't have a 0 here. So I'm going to give you a couple options and see which way you like better. So before I do that, y equals mx plus b. I already know that my m is 3, so I'm going to leave that there. Y, oops. So I get y equals, and so now I'm just looking for my b. Okay. One option is to extend this table so that you do have a 0. So my 0 goes right here in this little space. So I'm going to squeeze them in there. Just going to squeeze them in right here. Right. And then I'm going to figure out using my slope how to get there. Well, slope says that I go up 3 for every 1 unit of x. So that means I could figure this out by saying, what number would I put here that when I added 3, I would end up with 30? I'll say it again. What number, when I put it here, when I add 3, it would end up with 30? And you're like, oh, Miss Johnson, I know what that is. And I say, okay, well, what is that? And you're like, oh, it's 27. And I say, oh, I don't know if I believe you. So let me put 27 in here and see if that works. Okay, sync my notebook. Oops. It just closed my notebook. Okay, and we're back. So okay, so here we're trying to figure out what our y-intercept is, and we can use our table to do that. And we'd say, what plus 3 gives me 30? And you said 27. And then I checked 27 plus 3. Yeah, Ms. Johnson, that's 30. So in reality, this 27 over here is going to go over here for my b, right? And that makes complete sense. So let me put that here. And then I told you I was going to find you one more way to do this. Another way to do this, which is another kind of slick way to figure out how, like, what your b is if I said, okay, I don't know what my b is, and I'm right here in this part right here, and I say, okay, but I do know that y equals 3x plus b. Well, because I know that y equals 3x plus b, and I'm looking for my b, I can choose any of these points to kind of plug in here to find out what b is. Now, some of you are thinking, Ms. Johnson, we already know what b is. Yeah, but if you know me, we're always trying to find more ways than one way to get there, because the more ways you know, if you get stuck on a quiz or a test, you have options, and I like options. Okay, so I'm just going to pick any old point here. I like this one, 30, because 30 makes sense to me. So I'm going to put in 30 for my y. And I'm going to put 1 in for my x. So wait, what did you do, Ms. Johnson? I put that point 1, 30 in for my x and my y. So here's my X, here's my Y. And then now you see, I can just solve this equation, right? And so I'm just gonna subtract 3. So I get 27 equals to B. Hey, Ms. Johnson, that's exactly what you found earlier. I know, but now I know that my answer is correct, right? Another way for you to check your answer is you can choose any of the points that you maybe didn't use over and over again. So maybe this 19 and 84. And then I would plug in using a calculator, right? The 19 and 84 to see if my equation matches. So what do you want me to do? So let me show you. So I would take 19 and 84. So I'm going to put 19 there. I'm going to go 3 times 19 plus 27. And I'm hoping when I hit enter that I get 84. I did. So that means my answer is right. Okay. All right, next problem. It says, answer the questions about using the given X and Y values to write the slope-intercept form. In a linear relationship, when the value of Y is -1 when X is 7, and the value of Y is 3 when X is 5, what's the slope? Okay, so that's a lot of words. So I want to translate those words into math. It says the value of Y is -1 when X is 7. So this just says this, 7, -1. And this other point says when X is 5, Y is 3. And I'm like, oh, okay, I could do this. So now that I know how to do this, you can go back to any of these things here or here or here to find what you would need to do next. Okay, so this one breaks it down for you. You don't need to follow these steps. You can just kind of like remember from your own memory. What would you want to do next? And you're like, Ms. Johnson, you keep telling me to find the slope over and over again. So exactly, I'm going to find the slope. And I'll go -1 and 7, and I'll go 3 and 5. Okay, and then I'll subtract. So I get -4 over 2, which is just -2. And you're like, Ms. Johnson, I found the slope. Yay. Okay, then you're going to find your B. Now you can find your B any way that you want. You can make a table and find your 0. You can do this way here where I plugged in a point and find your B. You could even graph it like we did up here and figure out where it's connected, right? Yeah. So let's see. All those different ways. Which way would you do, Ms. Johnson? I probably plug in. So right now I'm going to plug into my equation y equals mx plus b. I already know what X is, but I know what M is, but I don't know what B is. So I'm going to put in my M. And then I'm going to plug in one of these points. Let's see, negatives, no negatives. I'm going to use the no negatives. Okay. So I'm going to plug in my points. So then I get 3 equals -10 plus B. So if you add 10 to both sides, that means B equals to 13. People think they're done here, but it asked you to write the equation of the line. So I'm going to write the equation of the line like this, y equals blank x plus blank, right? So I already know B is 13 and I know M is -2. So there, I'm done. And then how would you check your answer, Ms. Johnson? Several different ways to check your answer. You can graph it. You can plug both of these in. When I plug these in here, it should give you a true statement like -1 equals -1 or 7 equals 7 or something like that. Okay. All right, now they want you to do a word problem. So Krista's friend, Idre, I think his name is Idre, takes the bus to school. And she starts at a distance of 8 miles from school. And after 10 minutes on the bus, she's 4 miles from school. And after 20 minutes, she's 0 miles from school. Use the steps to find the equation that describes Idre's distance from the school as she rides the bus. So find the slope of the line using this. This is not something new. You can do this part, right? So go ahead and pause and find the slope. and then find the b, and then write your equation, and then come back here when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, so now you're ready to check your answer. I'm gonna m equals 2. Let's go 4 and 10 minus 0 minus 20. So that's 4 over negative 10. So this is negative 2/5. Ms. Shelton, what does negative 2/5 mean in this situation? Well, because they're using time as your x. Oh, this needs to catch up. Because they're using time as your x and distance as your y, this means that for every 2 miles, it takes them 5 minutes. Okay. Okay, so there's my slope. Hold on a second. Okay, so there's my slope. And then now they want me to find my b. And again, you can find your b in any way that you want. So here, though, it says she's 0 miles from school. No, I don't want 0 miles. I want 0 minutes. I want 0 minutes. But here it says she starts. She starts at a distance of 8 miles. Oh, so that's 0,8. That's my b. So here I'd write 8. And then here I'm going to write my equation. Y equals negative 2/5 x plus 8. Now, some people, they like to make this a decimal. I do not like decimals for my slope. Actually, I don't like decimals for the most part, unless they want some kind of value, because the slope is much easier used when it's a fraction, right? Because that's the rise, that's the run. So there's your equation. So what does this mean, Ms. Johnson? So the distance, so y is the distance from school. So she starts 8 miles away. And as time goes on, she gets 2 over 5 minute, she gets 2/5 closer every minute. She gets 2/5 of a mile closer every minute. Or she gets, for every 2 miles they travel, it takes them 5 minutes. And that's how it travels. And that's how she's getting closer and closer and closer and closer to school. Just kidding. All right. Any questions for this? Please come see me. The rest of this is just vocabulary that you've now learned. Have a great day.